Today, let's make a table cover perfect for Earth Day using all naturally dyed materials. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are making an Earth Day inspired quilt, a table runner if you will, using all naturally dyed materials. So all of these fabrics have been naturally dyed. So some examples, that polka dot one is actually made from onions. The big shapes are also onions. And then we have some of the smaller green and yellow, which is sage and eucalyptus. And then this purple is actually from a tulip. So with this, we are going to be using this tulip shaped scrap as our main go-to piece of fabric, as I only have one of them and I love this rectangular piece. So I'm just going to cut out as many rectangles the same size as that tulip colored fabric as I can. So as you can see, I have all of the rectangles laid out here. I kind of want to do this brick laying pattern effect where they're a little off-centered, so I'm just going to start pinning these up with right sides together. Now if you think that this is a pattern that you would like to see as an Etsy pattern, and maybe I do this with like a jelly roll kit, let me know and I'm happy to actually provide more information and do a write-up for it. But now I'm just going to go through and sew all of these strips together, specifically these large rectangles, putting them together to get all of my strips that then I'll be able to look at even further to determine what sort of pattern I want to do with this. So a lot of this, the sizing is all because of that one piece of fabric that I had, and I wanted everything to be as uniform to that as I could. So now I do have some of these smaller rectangles, basically the extras, and I'm going to add them onto the edge. And this is going to allow me to have a way that I can kind of scatter the different sizes of the strips so that I'm able to create that pattern that I'm looking for. And then with that pattern, we'll then trim it up at the end so that we get an actual rectangle. Once I have all the strips combined though, I'm then just going to press open these seams so that I get it nice and flat and smooth, so that I'm able to really start to see how do I want all of these strips to go together. Now of course with a quilt like this, you could try to memorize exactly what strips you want to go together. I have redone it each time, as you can see, and now I'm just going to start sewing these strips together. So get 2, 2, 2, taking that long seam all the way across, and then we'll combine them all in one. So what I really love about this quilt pattern is it's very simple to do. You're getting a really fun shape just from all of these rectangles, and now it is time to really sew everything to combine it so that we get that one final quilt topper. Now for this, I did end up using quilting clips most of the time that I was putting this together. You could have gone with pins if you would like. I just really ended up liking the quilting clips for this because since these were different scraps of material and I did go through and try to trim them up as much as possible, some of them did have a different texture, especially these fabrics. They were not all the same texture, so using the quilting clips held the fabric together a lot better than pins would have for me in this instance. But definitely use whatever you feel comfortable with, and then when you are taking these seams, be sure that you are backstitching at both the beginning and the end so that they are nice and secure. Once everything was nice and sewn together, I then went through with my iron and pressed everything out so it was nice and flat and smooth. You definitely could have ironed at each step along the way if you wanted to. My iron is in a completely different part of the house than my sewing room, so I like to do it kind of in bulk ironing batches. And then once it's done, this is what my quilt looks like. I absolutely love how it's turning out. And now it's really time to start putting it all together. So I did go through and trim up the edges so that we had a nice uniform rectangle. And then I created some binding just using scraps of a cream material that I had, and then I have the backing as well as the batting in the middle so it can actually be all the way quilted up and ready to go. Now for these steps, I did not go too into depth on how I did this. For example, for the quilting, I ended up using a decorative stitch that looked like leaves and just taking a parallel line on all of where those strips are connected to get a really fun nature effect. Now what I really loved about this quilt, especially for Earth Day, was a lot of this was scrap material that had been dyed first off, but then the back is also another scrap that I have from a previous project left over. So everything was being reused, everything was coming together to make this brand new table cover that I'm going to be able to use in my house. And I absolutely loved how these leaves looked on the fabric as a whole. Once I had that done, it was then time to go through and add my binding, which again, I used scraps for the binding as well. So really making sure that I did everything as a scrap friendly project, and I just hand sewed the rest of that on. And here's what the completed quilt looks like. I love how it looks. I love the pastel yellow with the contrast of the blue. And then of course we do have this like whitish gray, and that one purple strip is included as well. This is what it looks like on my table. I think it looks so good, and it's gonna be perfect for the spring as well as I think even early summer with those colors, and it looks great for Earth Day. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next.